Hi, I'm Scott Carson of Rogers Sportsnet, TV statistician on all Blue Jays games. And you are watching Red, White, and Blue Jays.
Swing and a drive.
Welcome to Red, White, and Blue Jays, the podcast home of Blue Jays Fans UK, a group connecting Blue Jays fans around the UK and beyond, and telling their story. And now, here's the host of Red, White, and Blue Jays, Steve Hunter.
Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Red, White and Blue Jays. Great to have you with us. And it's a very warm welcome today to today's guest. Really excited to be able to chat to somebody who we probably hear about a lot, but not directly, or certainly his influence we hear a lot about. So a very, very warm welcome to Scott Carson. Scott, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing great today. On a week off here to kind of refuel before this big stretch run. And after last night's doubleheader sweep of Baltimore, I'm feeling really good today.
Excellent. Just as a means of introduction for people who won't be perhaps so familiar with your name, can you just give me a little précis in terms of your role? Let's get that out up front so everybody knows who you are and what you do. And then I'd love to just sort of rewind the clock and just hear a little bit about how you came to do what you're currently doing. So if you're able to give me just a summary of your current role, that would be fantastic.
Certainly. So when you're watching Blue Jays games on Sportsnet, any information that you see on the screen, graphics, lower thirds, what have you, that comes through me, it starts early in the morning when we recompile all the stats from the night before. And basically my job pregame is to make sure that everything's in place for the game statistically. And then we build graphics. And then once the game starts and we've handed off the show statistically, graphically to the TV mobile, then my job is to research. So I listen to either Dan or Buck or Tabby. And when I think that I can add information, then I will do that. So if they're talking about Bo Bichette, I'll be researching as they speak. And if I can give them a nice little nugget to sound them, make them sound super smart, I'll slide it to them. And they use that. And that's what I like the most, when I can add to the broadcast. Keep in mind, I work with some very smart, savvy baseball men. And if I can add something that really makes me feel good, because that's why I'm there, to inform, infotain, as I like to say, the viewers. And so, you know, like I say, it starts about 9 a.m. here in Ontario, and doesn't really end until I've driven home. So it's a full day's work, but after 30 years, I know the drill, so nothing really surprises me now. I am surprised when they're in a playoff spot like this, because I was very lucky. My first year was 93. They won the World Series. I thought it was going to be like that all the time. Well, there's been more downs than ups, but we are on the upswing again. So it makes going to work every day loads of fun.
Yeah, what an amazing job. I think for any baseball fan who has any sort of inkling towards the statistics of the game, and because baseball is one of the most statistically related sports I can imagine. Certainly in terms of over here in the UK, cricket, I guess, would be sort of akin to the level, but I don't even think with cricket we get to the in-depth stuff that you do with baseball. But amazing. And I want to just dive into your 30 years of doing what you do. But before we start, I just want to just say I'm trying to rival you behind me, a bobblehead collection, and I'm just looking at yours there, and it's, I'm liking the lighting on your bobblehead collection. That looks very smart. I think I might need to upgrade a bit.
Yeah, it's I actually, what you're seeing behind me here is only a a third of what I actually have, because over on top of my filing cabinet, more bobbleheads. Over to my right here are all action figures that I've gotten either as giveaways at the ballpark or what I've bought. Because you have to keep in mind, before I took this job, I'm a Jays fan first and foremost. That's why I like to tell a lot of people that this isn't really a job. It's been a well-paid hobby for many, many years. Like I remember running home from grade school to see the first Blue Jays game, April 7th, 77, running in. My mom, who was a huge baseball fan also, and she was watching the game, and I remember just being transfixed, looking at the screen, Exhibition Stadium with its deep green AstroTurf. And it's like I was hooked. Well, I'd been watching baseball as a kid since about the time that I was like 6 or 7. Like I remember early World Series, Cincinnati Reds and the Big Red Machine. Like I was a fan of them, and then I was the Detroit Tigers fan before we got the Jays, and then once we got them, I was hooked. I wasn't like one of those millions of fans that claimed they were at the first game. I'm not going to say that. I wasn't there. I ran home from school that day to watch that first game, but I was at their fourth game. So right from the start. And then after that, I actually worked for the Blue Jays as an usher at Exhibition Stadium when I was 19, 20, and 21. It was a great job for a fan because you showed people to their seats, but you got to watch the game for free and get paid. It was only $50 a day back then. Like it was a mere pittance, but just to be a part of that scene. And actually, can I show you a cool photo here?
Of
if
course.
You don't mind?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Love to see that.
Yeah. So here's me as an usher with Ernie Witt. That's from 1982.
Oh, amazing.
So let's see if the light's not too bad. Yeah. So I mean, it's been a long time since I've been around this team, and then luckily my high school football coach, Doug Kelcher, was the original TV stats man, and I was in my last year of high school, and wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. I didn't know. Well, he brought me down to a game because he knew that I was a huge Jays fan. And I knew at that moment what my focus was going to be moving forward. So went to college, took radio and TV in Toronto, went from there to a brand new TSN, which is Sportsnet's main rival. Did my internship there and went right into there. And as I like to say, never had to play in the minor leagues. I went right into sports TV. And that was 85. And then 8 years later, I luckily got the job that I've been looking for my entire life. And the rest is history. And it's been a great run.
That's extraordinary. So in terms of your growing up watching baseball yourself, did you play? Was it something that you were involved in yourself?
Yeah.
And what sort of level did you play up to? Was it just high school stuff?
Yeah, I played local baseball through the end of my teens, and then I played one season in what was known as the Labatt Major League. It was for guys 20, 21, and 22. I played 1 year there, but unfortunately needed to work. So had to stop playing, miss it terribly. I ended up playing what we call here slow pitch, men's and women's on a Sunday night for 1 year, but it just wasn't doing it for me. And then, like I say, I had to work. So I started working and then started working towards this job. So I've always played baseball, always loved it, played catcher to start, played a little third base, played some center field. And lifetime Jays or baseball fan. And the funny part is when I was about 8, this was back before you got every game on TV. We only used to get 2 games a week. Wednesday nights, we got to watch the Montreal Expos. And then Saturday, we got from the US, the NBC Game of the Week. And I just always had uh, aversion for keeping score. And I used to take like a piece of graph paper and make a crude score sheet and keep score of the games. Always did that. And so to do this now, I'm looking down the barrel of 60 now. So it's been 52 years of keeping score of games. It's been an absolute love of mine for as long as I can remember. And, being able to do things like go to spring training with them first as a fan, and then late, like when we went down this year to do 8 games, it was like we hadn't done that in a long time, but it was
Sure.
so nice because it's still cold here in Ontario, and to go down to Florida was is just great because you wake up in the morning, games are early, so then you got loads of time after games to walk the beach, what have you, grab a pint, and it's absolutely love it. As you can tell,
Totally.
it's not been a job for a long time.
That's amazing. We love spring training here as well because all the lunchtime games means that I get in from work and
Perfect.
and when it's been broadcast, we can catch a lot of the live action, which is fab here. So you mentioned that you were a Tigers fan for a season, or you watched the Tigers. Is that quite a common occurrence, particularly in Ontario, where you're so close to Detroit?
Yeah, and the thing was, we didn't even know that we were going to get a major league team here until late '76. If you remember, Labatt's Brewery almost bought the San Francisco Giants at the start of the '76 season, but that fell through, and then they got an expansion team. But before that, I was a huge Tigers fan because one of their relief pitchers when I was a kid actually grew up in Scarborough, Ontario, east end of Toronto. And I actually played against the same team that he grew up playing in. I think he's about 5 years older than me, but it was always great. I played for a team called Heron Park, and it was always great when we would play Scarborough Village because John Hillard played there. So it was a big deal to me. So I became a Tigers fan and went to my first ever major league game with my mom and dad. We were going on a trip, and to make me go, because I would have been 13 at the time, and I'm like, I don't want to go on a trip like this. But they said, okay. My dad knew somebody in the airplane business that could get us tickets to see the Tigers at Tiger Stadium against the Boston Red Sox. And that was like, Jim Rice, Fred Lynn, Yaz, real good team. So that was my first game. And then the next year we got the Jays, and just, that was it.
Yeah. And amazing memories. You talk about coming home, running home on the first day the Jays played at Exhibition Stadium. Of course, that was the snow game, wasn't it? Where I guess you wouldn't see it now. They wouldn't do it in those sort of conditions, but it was just welcome to baseball in Canada. This is how we do it. Exactly. and your memories of Exhibition Stadium, it was quite a quirky place, wasn't it? In terms of its setup, it was trying to be all things to all men type stadium.
It was originally built for CFL football. Toronto Argos, that was their home stadium. So it got basically cut in half by the fence, if you remember. And
I do,
the scoreboard that we had was like way down the end of the end zone of the football field. So it was quirky. The seats didn't point towards home plate at all. You had to shift. I mean, we used to always go down and sit in the bleachers because back then the bleachers cost $2 to get into the game. So we did that all the time. And it was loads of fun. It was a cold, damp stadium in the month of April and the month of September. I remember going to the game 2 of the 1985 ALCS against the Royals when we first made the playoffs, and it was like we had like parkas on and toques and everything. Like it was very cold, but everybody looks back at that stadium very fondly because that's where a lot of Jays fans learn to follow the game, basically, right? So I mean, I was actually going through a big bin of stuff that as you can tell, I collect loads of stuff, and I found a envelope full of old ticket stubs, and I was going through, and it brought back loads of memories. Which I mean, everybody said it was a horrible place to go to a game because of the weather, because that stadium was right on Lake Ontario, and when the wind was coming from the southwest, it just brought cold wind in that place. And so, like, I've talked to Pat Tabler a lot because he played there when he was with Cleveland, and he said they used to hate when they had to come up and play Toronto in either April or September because it was just so cold. And yeah, fondness of that whole place though. And then, like I told you before, I worked there for 2.5 years, and yeah, Exhibition Stadium was great memories in that place.
Yeah, and of course when the Sky Dome was being constructed, I guess there was a massive amount of excitement moving into something that had a roof on it for starters. But at the time it was built was, I guess, forward thinking in terms of sporting stadia and municipal use and all that sort of stuff. My first visit was in '94, so I was just a couple of years after you started working there, which is interesting parallel storyline. But yeah, so moving into Sky Dome, what was that like as a fan going from Exhibition Stadium into this new ballpark?
You couldn't believe it. Like it was for its time, it was the first stadium with retractable roof, so we were guaranteed every game on time, and you would be comfortable. There's no doubt about that. I was actually at the first ever game there, and I'm glad that I'm speaking with you in England because I brought a woman with me who's from England, and we used to go to loads of games, and she learned the game pretty quickly, and she enjoyed it a lot. I think she lives in Gloucester now. Kay Raygate, good friend of mine. I've been speaking to her. She's been recovering from surgery lately, so I've been talking to her a lot. But she came to the first game with me and absolutely loved it. And hi, Kay, if you're watching.
Yeah,
and,
tell her. Yeah, absolutely. Get her to watch it.
Well, I mean, when I get the link to this, I'm going to send it to her because I explained to her this morning that I was coming on your show, and she was like, as she talks, that's Brill. So Skydome, it was a great place to watch games. And then once we started making the playoffs regularly, and I got to go as a fan 92, 93 because the U.S. networks took the games over once we got into the postseason. So I was very luckily saw all the World Series games, the playoff games. Before that, I was at the Joe Carter game as a fan, which was nothing will ever top that. Like I've never heard a stadium absolutely roar for like half an hour after the game, and that, like, people were going bananas because when I was a kid growing up, throwing a ball off the back wall in the backyard, at the end of the day, my team would win the World Series on a home run. And Joe Carter gave that with to me. And when he worked with us for a couple of years in the early 2000s. And one day it was just me and him up in the booth. And I said, Joe, I want to tell you a story. And I recounted about throwing the ball in the yard and then being called to come in for supper, and I'd say, Joe, every time that I was out there throwing the ball, my team won the World Series on a walk-off home run. And I said, you gave that to me, sir, and God bless you for that. And he actually had tears in his eyes. He said, Scotty, thank you. What a great story. So, yeah, it's like playoffs there, you know, 15 and 16, they were back in the playoffs and they almost made it to the World Series again. And then again 2 years ago. But when that place is full and the Jays are in the playoffs, it is a great place to watch. Just rabid Toronto fans. And so
Yeah.
we're kind of hoping, you know, they're only a half game back in the wild card right now again. And if they can vault up to the number 1 slot, we will get home games there
Yeah.
in October. So fingers crossed on that, because yeah, we want them to make the playoffs, obviously, as fans, but it would be way better if we could play at home, because I don't want to have to go to Seattle or Cleveland or Tampa Bay. No interest in that. Let's be the top team, and then we can do it our way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As a venue, when the roof is closed and it's full house. So I came across in 2016.
Okay.
It's in the regular season, so it wasn't postseason, but regular season, and
Sure.
it was full at that point. My first game actually in '94, it was basically full. The roof was open. Actually, I was only 4 days before the strike, so I just got in
Sure.
by my fingernails. So I've been there when it has been full and it's been pumping, and the excitement levels. Obviously, looking back, I never experienced the World Series wins. I can only relive them looking back on those videos. And it was great, the celebrations that we had the other day in terms of the 92 World Series wins. What was the momentum behind that 92 team going into 93? Did anybody really expect them to be able to repeat it so quickly? And still a relatively young franchise. You know, we're talking sort of 15 years old, aren't we, from their inception? And to finally get the World Series in 92, what was that mindset as you went into 93 with those team? Team
they turned over the roster quite significantly after the 92 win. You know, Jimmy Key left, Dave Steve was let go, Dave Winfield left, but they replaced them, because that was at a point in time in the game where Toronto was a destination to go and play if you were a free agent. And so, you know, we brought in the likes of Dave Stewart, Paul Molitor, like real pros, all-stars, as it turns out, Hall of Famers. And so, you know, and they added to Joe and Robbie and all the great players that they already had. So we certainly were expecting that to be another long run, and it was. And when they made it back to the World Series, not that we expected it, but it was like, okay, let's do this again then, because nothing will beat 92. When they won the World Series in Atlanta, I had a big party at my house, and we had champagne and everything. And it was like, I'll never forget that. That's why when they just recognized the 92 team again last week, you know, I'm not going to lie to you, when they were giving speeches and showing highlights and all those things, I was tearing up, because it brought back a flood of great memories, not as a worker on the scene that, you know, knows how this all works, but just as a fan. Because, you know, as a lifelong fan, you know, to finally win the World Series was mind-boggling. I mean, like they say, they came so close in '85, their first try, ultimately lost to the Royals, only in my mind because they changed the ALCS from a 5-game series to a 7-game. Because if it had been a 5-gamer, we would have won that first round and gone on to the World Series to play St. Louis. And so 87, that was tough. lost all those games right at the end of the year. The Tigers passes. Then we got back in the playoffs, 89 and 91. Didn't make it again, but Robbie Altomar's home run off of Eckersley in the ALCS in 92 is what many of us think is the most important home run ever. Now you can say, well, Joe's won the World Series, but I mean, we wouldn't have gotten to the World Series without that one swing. Yeah. And like, I remember because it was Thanksgiving here, my family, and we had the game on. And when Robbie hit that home run, we jumped out of our chairs, high-fiving everybody in the room. Like it was a big deal. And so, yeah, those 92 and 93 seasons were like, I mean, I can say this. I always hope that they make the playoffs and go as far as possible. But if for the rest of my life, they never won the World Series ever again, I think I'm okay with that because saw the 92 one, was at the 93 Joe Carter game. And, you know, like I say, if they had told me when I was a kid that we would win a World Series on a walk-off, which is so rare, it's only happened, you know, home runs twice. Bill Mazeroski, 1960, Joe Carter. And so, yeah, loads of fond memories. And as I look around my room, yeah, everything in here is all Blue Jays, of course, because except I have one wall because I'm a big Chicago Bears fan, Canada's biggest Chicago Bears fan. So my wife purposely painted the wall Bears blue. The other ones are all Blue Jays blue, little lighter color. And I have a little shrine to the Bears too. But this is my office. And when we have friends over and stuff, ultimately somebody says, can we go see your office? And I go, sure. Cause you know, I got bats and balls and everything. So
that's
it's
fantastic.
Yeah, it's, you know, like I say, I've been blessed and you know, really the hardest part of my job is the travel. And now that we're back traveling again, because we didn't travel for almost 2 years there. And I got kind of used to being at home. My wife certainly did, because she's a very patient woman who, you know, I'm basically home for only half the summer. And so when I told her that I had to start to travel again, she wasn't exactly happy, but she understands, you know, that we have a nice life because of what I have to do. And so I just said, sorry, dear, but I always make sure that every October when everything's done, because I used to work on hockey in the off season, not as much as this, obviously, but haven't done that for 3 years now. So I'm basically semi-retired, and she loves it now because, you know, I'm home the whole winter, and when she comes in from work, dinner's cooking and she can smell it. So it's just those little things in life, right? So I mean, she's a very, very patient woman. God bless her for that, because not a lot of women could handle their husband having a job where they're not home very much. So yeah, so we're looking forward to the end of this year. Might have to do some playoff games. Fingers crossed on that. And then she takes 2 weeks vacation when that's done, and we go places either the Caribbean or Europe or whatever. That's her reward for her unending patience.
Absolutely. And you said to me just before we started recording that she actually isn't a sports fan as well, which which is extraordinary with the job that you're doing and the amount of time and energy that takes to do
well
that.
and what makes it good for me, because you know, I grew up down in Toronto, and we now live about a 45-minute drive up the highway. And so it means that when I get home, and this is the God's honest truth, she's never said to me, what happened in the game today? Because she doesn't care. And that's perfect, because my 45-minute drive, when I can turn off the post-game show, because I usually listen to that, obviously, because I'm driving. But once it gets to a certain point, I put music on, because I'm a huge baseball fan, but my real passion is for music. And so I listen to music, windows down, breeze blowing through the car. And by the time that I'm home, like I've had somebody call and say, "What was the score tonight?" And it's flown out of me so well during the drive and listening to music that I love to listen to. I go, I got to think about that, and I'll go 5-2. So yeah. So yeah,
Extraordinary.
it's just it's just been so much fun, and yeah, and I love baseball stats too. So I mean, this has been
Yeah.
a dream for 3 decades now.
Yeah, Scotty, it just oozes out of you your love for what you're doing and your
Yeah.
passion for the team, and your love for your wife. It's just what a combination there, sir. You've got it down to
Oh,
a
hey,
T.
like I say, I've been unbelievably blessed for so long now that the little things in life wash off me now. I don't complain about very much now.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's been a, as they like to say, it's been a hell of a ride.
yeah, absolutely. Let's just have a chat then about the gentleman that you have been working alongside over all these years. I
Yep.
was just thinking as you were talking about Joe Carter's um, walk-off homer in the '93 World Series, and of course the Touch 'Em All Joe commentary line. How quickly did that one? Were people aware of that, or did that just become iconic? Sort of.
No, it seemed like the touch 'em all Joe call was from the late Tom Cheek on
Yeah,
the radio.
on the radio. Yeah,
They tend to play back on TV the U.S. network call on those games. But I mean, when I think of the Joe Carter home run, I hear Tom Cheek, touch
yeah,
'em all Joe. It's one of the most iconic home run calls in the history of Major League Baseball. They've played that on the MLB network when they, during the playoffs, they'll do, great calls, and that's usually in the top five, and it is, and it's not because uh, we knew Tom and loved Tom, that flowed out of him organically. That wasn't like written down on a card and he said, well, if he hits a home run here, I'm going to say this. No, that like all of the Blue Jays commentators that I've worked with, and it's been dozens now, because you have to remember, Blue Jays used to play on 3 networks at the start when I started, and I worked for all 3 of the networks because I left TSN before the '93 season and had to go what they call freelance, because I had to work for everybody, because it made no sense to be traveling to Oakland and have me there with one network and then fly in other people. I mean, that's just a waste of money. So it was always, I worked for everybody. So that was always good. And I've worked with some of the greats over the years. Don Chevrier was one of the original, like on the first ever game, he was the commentator on that game. So Chevy was a great guy. God bless him. He's left us, but yeah, and like our current crew of guys, Dan Shulman, Buck Martinez, Pat Tabler. I've worked for these guys with these guys for 3 decades now, and we're all fast friends. Dan Shulman is one of the best in the business. It doesn't matter whether he's calling Blue Jays or college basketball for ESPN. He's like considered one of the best across the board.
It's brilliant.
And the funny thing about Dan is that before he got into broadcasting, he was actually an actuary, a man who does stats for a living. So I can't sneak anything past him, because when he sees the raw numbers, and if I'm off by 1 on the average or whatever, he smacks me on the arm and goes and writes it down real quick. Like, oh yeah, like brilliant with numbers. And now he's become brilliant with the analytics too. Like he understands those like very few. Certainly me, I'm still old school and still trying to wrap my head around that. Worked with Buck right from the start as a because he was the analyst on TSN games then, and then he left us to become the manager for that little while, which was great. Like, you have no idea how cool it is when the manager of the team is a friend of yours.
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
after working with him for so long, walk down to the field, which I can because I have an all access pass, and then stop with him and say, "Hey, Skip, what's up?" And he has a conversation with, he'd say, "How's the family?" Well, like it was beyond cool, to actually be a friend of the manager. And then I was very lucky to become a friend with John Gibbons, who he just had on the show. And that story is actually interesting because we were in line about four people apart during his first year as a full-time manager in a Manhattan hotel, trying to get out to Yankee Stadium. And my car rolled up, and I turned and I said, "Hey, John, you want to share a cab?" So that was the first time that we ever spoke. And to have him there with me for like a half-hour drive. And the great part was we got to know each other. We talked about everything except baseball, which
Yeah.
was nice to get to know the person. And so when we got to Yankee Stadium, we got out. He turned to me and in that Gibby voice said, "Scotty, real great to meet you. You were way different than I thought you were." And from that day forward, we were fast friends. And that's why it was like, that was my little joke, just because I knew that if you said to him, "Scotty Carson asked this question," he would like that. And so, yeah.
He did. He did. He
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
quite. He couldn't quite get the Serrano Pepper link.
That was
He,
just me being goofy as usual. So,
uh, he was thinking hard.
yeah, like, what is
What
that
that's
about?
what was that about? But yeah, he loved the fact that you'd put a question into him. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And so, getting back to working with our guys right now, like I say, we've all become fast friends. We all have grandchildren now, and all those things. Like, we share in each other's lives, which you would do when you're with certain people every day for 6 months of the year, right? So I mean, we have nothing but fondness for uh, each other, which has been good, because I couldn't imagine being on this job and not getting along with somebody that you're around every day. That's never been the case, and that's another uh, blessing, because like, when you walk in, you smile, you shake hands, "How you doing today?" And you start your day again. So great guys to work with.
yeah,
Always like to work with ex-players as a fan too. I mean, I've that's always been a thrill, because I mean, I've worked over the years with, like I said, Joe Carter or Rance Melnick, Jesse Barfield, John Cerruti, the late John Cerruti. And yeah, it's once again, as a fan, it's like, this is so cool that this person's my friend. So
yeah.
that makes the job loads of fun also.
Yeah, you talked about Tom Cheek and obviously Jerry Howarth
Yep.
came alongside him as well, and certainly a lot of my formative years in listening to the Jays, again because of the lateness of the evening games here, I'd
Yep.
often put my earphones in and listen to the radio broadcast and listen to Jerry. Do you feed into the radio booth as well with your statistics, or is it just on the TV side?
No, I've been doing that for years, especially with the advent of emails, where you just click one person's name and you can send them everything that you've done on the TV side. And like, I do that now, especially because Ben Wagner has to work by himself, which I like. I was driving home from the airport, flying home from Pittsburgh yesterday, and I turned on the game, of course, and listened to Ben, and he has to call the games by himself. So I give him everything that I give our guys, and I also put together little lists for him, because he needs to talk for like 3 hours straight all by himself. Yesterday, I thought to myself, like, I sent along to him yesterday extra stuff, because 6 hours of commentating on a game. So, and
It's unbelievable.
he's always been very appreciative of that. And like I say, I just have to click on his name when I'm doing emails, and he gets everything that we get, because different audience, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
TV audience, doesn't have the game on the radio. Radio people are usually in the backyard, or they're at the cottage, they're in the car. That's a different crew. And so just try and give Ben as much as I can. And I did that before for Jerry, because Jerry and I became really good friends over the years. Like I can honestly say we are great friends. And so I miss him not doing the games, because he was a great guy. And,
Yeah.
and he always appreciated everything that I did for him, because on the radio side, they don't have a stats guy. They have to do all their own stuff. And so I've never had any problem helping out those guys, because we all work for the same company too. The same man signs our checks. So why wouldn't I help it out? Because it's a company thing. So that Jerry and now Ben it's been a real pleasure. And before that, Joe Siddle also worked with them, who's on our pregame. Another great baseball guy, a Canadian baseball guy, which
Yep.
I remember on Canada Day this year, it was Dan and Joe and me in the booth, and I realized, because I really thought hard, and I said, that was the first time that we've done the Canada Day broadcast in the red jerseys with an all Canadian crew.
Yeah.
Like that was a big deal, and I mentioned that to him, and then I had a post on Twitter explaining just that. Like, this was the first today,
Yeah,
and that was really neat. Joe's one of us now, because does the TV side, does a little bit with us, and he's certainly on most of the pregame shows and stuff. So and I send him things too, because different side of the game, because they're doing more analyzing things, and we're not doing the actual nuts and bolts of the game as it happens. So it's a great group. It's a really great group. So and now we're thrilled that Buck is back to active duty again, because when he revealed to us that he had cancer and was going to have to step away, it rocked us. So when he finally came back, and the ovation at the Rogers Center that day was like, it was a beautiful thing, and I know that it meant loads to him. And so we're glad to have him back. Like I say, I've been working with him for 30 years, and so great bunch of people to work with.
Yeah, and that definitely comes across. I was going to say it was going to be remiss of us not to mention both Buck and Jamie, of course, with his treatment as well. And I think for both of them, when the news broke, I think it did shake people. I think, when for fans like us watching familiar faces, they feel like friends and they feel like family, because we see them every day. And so when you hear that sort of news, it does take you back and makes you think about life and all those sort of things. So it's great to see, Buck. And I thought particularly the other day when they did the Stand Up to Cancer, and I know they did the camera on you guys in the booth, and that was a great moment.
Yeah, that was and when we were doing our signs, Buck wasn't in the booth, and I turned to Tabby and I said, "Well, this is what I'm doing," and he says, "Well, that's what I'm doing." And so it was neat. And then they showed us, and I know that Buck, I could tell that he was not overwhelmed, but he was
touched by that. Yeah,
he could feel it in his heart. And the one thing about our team being the only team in Canada is that we get the whole country, and I think by that extension, we get the whole world outside of the United States, because a lot of people don't like the U.S. for various reasons, but our team in Canada being thought of so well in Europe after World War II and all that stuff, like I see all kinds of postings from yourself, from Belgium. I've seen stuff in Australia. Like we're like a worldwide team almost. And so when something happens to people that are in your household on a daily basis. A lot of people felt that, and it was just nice. All the love that flowed back to Buck and Jamie. That was really nice.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to see. Right, I do want to sort of have a little chat about the Jays in terms of our current team and where we're up to. Great game last night, or the doubleheader last night. Bo doing exceptionally well. So we'll talk about him in just a moment. I just want to do a little passing reference. We won't stay on it for too long in terms of the bat flip game.
Yep.
We were. I mean, obviously, it was the American broadcast team that were in the game. Were you at the stadium that night, the ballpark that night for that game?
No, I was not. I was watching the game at home, actually, because if memory serves, that was an afternoon game, right?
No,
so
it was evening.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, but, it was, because it was about 2:30 in the morning when the bat flip happened.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and I was watching that game, and that was back before nobody showed emotion like that. To flip the bat like that was extremely rare. And then what ultimately ended up happening was the Odor punch to the jaw the next year.
Yeah.
And it's like I was at that game, and when he slid hard into second base after they had hit him purposely with a pitch.
Yeah.
I knew in my mind, I said to myself, something's going to go down here. Yeah. And it certainly did. That was a brawl for the ages with, and that's why now when Odor rolls back into the Rogers Center, he is absolutely despised. Yeah. And so, the bat flip game was just one of those moments in franchise history, which iconic, and will for this new generation of fans, they absolutely love that. Like I remember, I'll tell you a great story. My niece got married the next year, and we were at the reception. When the wedding party walked in, she had her bouquet, and as she got down to the end, she threw it exactly like Jose did, and the place roared. It was really funny, because she's part of that generation of fans, right? So, and now, I mean, this game does not look like it did when I was growing up, where there was, certain rules and codes and all that stuff. There was no home run jacket or home run locket or whatever you have. And that's just a sign of the times. Remember, MLB wanted to do that let the kids play thing, which they did. And so they're letting the kids play now. And they're certainly letting them look like they want to look, with the long hairs and the tattoos and earrings and everything. It's representative of these times, right?
Scotty, you're sounding like me.
Yeah, like me, no hair at all. And it's like the game has changed, but it's certainly brought in a lot more fans, and that's the whole idea, right? Like, yes, they do play this game to win championships, but teams are teams to make as much money as they possibly can, and this has drawn in so many more fans. It's brought in the fringe fans, actually, along with analytics and stuff, right? I mean, these are the fringe fans that really thought the game was boring, which it can be. I'm not going to sit here and say everything's great, but it's brought in a level of fan that didn't have interest in this game before this new time. And so it is what it is. I mean, I'm old school, like I say, but I see what has happened, and I'm not going to be so old that I'll say, oh, this is ridiculous. No, times change. And so you have to either evolve with that change or get run over by it. And so, that bat flip game, I remember thinking, oh, this is going to lead to something. And sure enough, it did. But now guys are doing it all through the game. And so it's a different game now. No doubt about that.
Oh, yeah. Totally different. And I think every sport, it evolves, doesn't it? We've seen it here in the cricket. We've got this thing now called the 100, which is 100 balls aside. And it's meant to be, compared to the test match cricket game, which is over 5 days, It's a
Sure.
long drawn out game. It might
Yeah.
end in a draw, and so it's a very different mindset. So the 100 game is short, sharp, much more like baseball, a bit more exciting for the kids, and it's having to reinvent itself to
Yeah.
make sure the next generation of fans continue to come along. And I think not only is the game changing, but I think also in terms of, I mean, the amazing work that's happened in Rogers Centre this year in terms of the screen and just all that stuff that's happening, and then
Yeah. No
again
doubt.
the reinvention of the ballpark as a whole, or the redesign of the ballpark. How excited are you to see the changes that Rogers are looking to make to the
Yeah.
stadium?
It's from the artist renderings that we've seen in the digital videos and stuff, I think it's going to look like a different stadium. I love the raising of the bullpens right up
Yeah,
to the top, right where the fans are. That might be problematic if people have had one or two too many pints, and then,
falling off the WestJet
because
flight deck down
yeah,
into.
you never know. But I mean, and what they're going to do to the 500 level, making it basically a patio up there, it's going to be very interesting. And once again, that's going to draw fans. Where Rogers Center is going to be a destination, as it were. You're not doing anything this weekend. I don't want to go to the bar. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Rogers Center. So I mean, I'm looking forward to see how this is going to go. The only fly in the ointment, though, is if the Blue Jays have a long run and they have to play home games there,
Yeah.
right until November. That's going to take a month out of the re-rendering of the whole place. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing if we made it all the way to the World Series. That's really first world problems then, right? And so I know for a fact that once that place is finally empty, that's when all of these major renovations are going to happen, and they're going to be up against the clock. And that's why we don't start playing home games next year until we're
Yes,
10 games into
I was going to say
the
about 10 games in, isn't it?
yeah, because they're going to need all that time to get it ready to go. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Okay, so postseason prospects this year. We're so close last year, primarily with this core group of players. Obviously,
Yep.
Jays have added in a number of people over the off season, then up to the trade deadline. So close last year to getting in, and I think what was your take if we had got in? How would you have fared our chances in the postseason last year?
I think it would have been the same as what happened in 2020. Would have been a quick exit.
Okay.
They were just a little short, and that's why they came up one game short. I mean, they're I mean, as good as Robbie Ray was last year, we were just lacking in certain areas. Plus, our core group of guys, Flatty and Bo, and the recently heated up Kevin Biggio, that's a great sign because
Totally.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was supposed to be the three of them, and they're still learning how to win here. I mean, they're still young men, and so to get to the dance, it's not a straight line. It's going to waver here and there. Now, what has happened recently, especially on the road? I mean, I'm going to throw the Angels sweep out because they had just come off of 7 up-tempo games at New York and Boston, and they didn't get. I'm not making excuses about it, but I mean, I know how I felt because I was wiped out, and I still had to go to work the next day. Well, I flew the next morning and went to work from the airport that day. I try not to do that because it makes for a super long day, but that's what happened. But they didn't get home to Toronto until like 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So they probably weren't in bed trying to sleep until 5 o'clock-ish, I would think. And so I think certainly that first game when they had nothing and they played very badly on defense and stuff, I think they were just worn out. There was a lot of pressure in those 2 AL East road series, And then unfortunately, game two, Otani pitched. You're not going to get much out of him. And then I think by the third day, they were just mentally tired. Well, they seem to have learned from that because they rolled back out onto the road and they've been clicking on all cylinders here. And so this is a good sign because I know they're only a half game out of the number one wild card slot, which would mean a home game, but at least they're playing well on the road now, and extremely well on the road, which is going to come into play because if you're not one of the first place teams, at some point you're going to be the road team in the majority of the playoff games. Just the way that the whole system is set up. So last year they just weren't good enough, and I'm old school too when it comes to this because I saw the World Series teams. Right, that's what I want. I want the World Series just to make the playoffs. Yeah, it's great and all, but I want the whole enchilada again. I mean, it's because there's nothing like it, and unfortunately, our younger fans have never witnessed that. You can watch it on videotape and when it's on now the TV and stuff, but like it's fun when you win in the playoffs and start advancing. There's an energy that seems to flow out of the ground, for God's sake, and you feel great all the time. Like when we 92 and 93 will forever be legendary because like, the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is just how intense those games are. Every pitch is intense. It's starting to feel like that now. Like when I was driving home from the airport listening to Ben on the radio yesterday, and that horrible strike call wasn't called, and then the next pitch, Santander hit that home run. Like I could feel the tension, and then luckily those two games turned into laughers, which is what they needed because they didn't have to pitch Garcia, Anthony Bass, or Romano in either of those games. So that'll be big today's game with Mitch White going. We have to hope that we can get him through the order twice and then hand the ball off to a very good bullpen. So we're at a spot here again, though. Like you can feel it. Like if they were knock on wood, sweep the Orioles in these next two games, that knocks them back enough that hopefully those last three games in Baltimore again won't have to mean anything because then you can set your rotation for the first round of the playoffs or whatever's happening. And they need these next two because they can push an Orioles team that in my mind has overplayed. I mean, they weren't very good last year. Now they're like 8 games over 500 or whatever it is, and it's like this is a dangerous team because of their new young guys like Rutschman and this new Gunnar Henderson guy. These kids look like legit, and so we have a chance to push them back now. And so, like, let's do it over the next 2 nights again, and we can put them farther into the rearview mirror. And then all that you have to worry about is what's in front of you, which is the Mariners and Rays, because nobody's going to catch the Yankees, even as bad as they played this year. They built up too much of a cushion that, I mean, I watched a interview with Yankees manager Aaron Boone the other day. He's starting to look like a raccoon, like, the circles around his eyes. Like, you can't imagine the pressure if they were to blow this, because they were so far out in front that we thought they are home and cooled. Well, that's not the case right now because they're not playing well. They made some questionable trades at the trade deadline, and their lineup has shrunk a little bit because certain guys aren't really hitting that well. Stanton, since he's been back, hasn't really hit well. Donaldson, who was a great player here, he's a mere shell of his former self. So they can be had. Like, I think that the team to beat in the AL right now is Houston, and they just
Yeah.
brought up a new kid to start last night. Looked like they showed a split screen of him and Verlander, exact same motion. Like it was uncanny. And I was like, oh, so these guys have another weapon. Houston's always been a very good team, regardless of that scandal. I mean, they've always been a good team. Yeah, they cheated. There's no doubt about that. But they always have great players. It's not like their cheating made average players great players. They've always had great players, and we're lucky to have one of them in George
Totally.
Springer. When he's healthy, he's as good a player as there is. And when he's healthy, he sets the tone, and he's the engine of the offense too. So things are going to be interesting over this last group of games here, because like I say, it's starting to get a playoff feel to it, which is great. Certainly great when you're working on it, because you're more locked in, like you're locked into every pitch. Because when games get boring, your mind can wander, and then you're like, come on, lock back in on this. So yeah, this will be a big game tonight, because Mitch White, as we've seen, looks like he might be a twice through the order guy. Certainly not a guy that's going to take you late into the games, but luckily our bullpen didn't get blown out yesterday, which it could have easily happened. And so yeah, let's go. Let's take these next two, and then it's on to Texas. And those non-playoff teams are dangerous to play because they play loose, right? That they're not going to make the playoffs, and like, let's not look past Texas into Tampa next week, because they're coming here, another doubleheader in there, and those are going to be some big games too.
Yeah, it's a big month, against the Orioles and against the Rays. One player that I think everybody has remarked how well he's done is Ross Stripling. If he hadn't performed as well as he had, particularly with all the issues with Ryu and so on, I think we'd be much further back. How impressed have you been with Ross Stripling's performance this year?
Yeah, it was weird, because during the start of the year, he was the 2021 version of himself. And then all of a sudden, remember, Ryu got hurt, and they had to put him into the rotation in his slot. And since then, he's got like the fourth best ERA in the AL. Something clicked. I'm not sure what it was, but we're not worried at all when we look down. Oh, Ross Stripling tonight. Not worried at all. He's turned into a valuable member of that rotation. And after Gosman and Barrios, like that gives us, certainly for the first round of the playoffs, whether we're on the road or at home, we can line up three guys there that can win that. So that's a really good thing. Ross has been a great surprise, because before this stretch, he was like hit and miss. One night he looked great, and then all of a sudden he'd give up a couple of hits and a home run, and we'd be trailing, and it was like, this isn't what we need now. But he's very valuable right now, for sure.
Yeah. Lots of guys very valuable to us. I mean, let's really hope that they do hang on in there and get across the line, because it's looked so positive for large parts of the season. I know we've had moments where it's been a bit streaky, and we've had down moments, but we've had some very, very good moments, and it's good to remember those. And with the expanded playoffs, they've got every chance of getting in there. Just as we come to a close, Scotty, just thinking about your wife and travel and stuff, how would you like to see the Jays travel across to this part of the world as part of the MLB International Series? We've obviously got Cubs and Cardinals coming next year.
Yep. I remember when I heard about that, I thought to myself, why not the Blue Jays?
Why not?
International team. Canada came from England originally back in the day. And I would love to see that, because I think that the English fans don't really have a real affinity for, the Cubs and the Cardinals. But I would think that if we came there to play, it would be a big deal. So I would
Oh,
love to see that happen. I hope it happens. I've not heard their name involved in these things because it's usually the usual subs teams, Yankees, Red Sox, blah, 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 Cubs, Cardinals, the established teams. But I think there's more than enough of a following that if the Toronto Blue Jays were to come to England to play a series, I think it would be a big deal. And I'd love to come back to England. I haven't been in England since 1988 when I went to visit my aforementioned friend, Kay. And I'd love to go back. I mean, that would be outstanding. So I'll start to sniff around about that.
yeah.
Because, like I say, haven't heard that, but I would certainly love to see it happen.
Yeah, I think the only reference that I've heard from the Jays is Mark Shapiro made a sort of passing comment when he was being asked about the international series, and he said, I think I'm paraphrasing, but England would make sense for us to go because of the connection, and there is certainly a massive fan base here in terms of Blue Jays fans. I've said to other guests when we had the Yankees and Red Sox in 2019, beyond the fans that were represented for those two teams, most people are saying that it looked like the Jays were the next biggest represented fan base at those games,
No doubt.
which I'm not surprised at all by. I just think the challenge is for MLB whether it's a big enough sell to their audience to bring the Jays over. So while we would support it wholeheartedly, I just wonder whether there is a question mark in terms of what MLB feel. So we'll see. But if it happens, come and have a beer. We'd love to spend some time with you. Yeah,
no doubt.
Oh, Scotty, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that we've gone on a bit longer than we said, but it's so good just to hear your insights, your memories, and as I said in the beginning, just hearing your enthusiasm and your love for what you do and for this team, it's infectious, sir.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Now, great to see you, and we wish you well. Enjoy the rest of your season and all the travels. Travel safe, and please give our regards to the guys in the booth. Let them know how much we enjoy listening to you all and all that you bring to us over here in the UK. We're so grateful for that.
Sure.
We'll see you soon. Take care now.
Okay. Thanks very much. I had loads of fun today. Thank you.
That's great. Cheers. Bye-bye.
The Red, White, and Blue Jays podcast is a production of Blue Jays Fans UK. If you've got a Blue Jays story to share, let us know. Email us at bluejaysfansuk@gmail.com. And follow along on Twitter and Instagram at Blue Jays Fans UK. I'm your announcer, Jim Langton. Thanks for listening.